Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. I'm excited to have David Nielsen from the Nielsen-Naylor Group on. The Nielsen-Naylor Group are a fundamentalist Mormon group that kind of comes from the FLDS Church and Centennial Park. So we'll talk about how they did succession after that. Some people call them the Third Ward. And so we're going to dive into the splits with the FLDS and Nielsen-Naylor and the Centennial Park group. So you won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out. Welcome to Gospel Tangents. I'm excited to have another member of the Restoration. Could you go ahead and tell us who you are and what part of the Restoration are you with?
So my name is David Nielsen, and I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Kingdom of God. That's
in the Kingdom of God.
We added that on.
Because ours isn't long enough. You got to tack on three more words.
We had to add on a little bit more.
Or four.
But online and around we're known as the Nielsen-Naylor Group.
Okay.
But we've shortened our name to the Church and Kingdom.
The Church of the Kingdom.
The Church and Kingdom.
The Church and Kingdom. Okay.
Yep. So that it's a little shorter, easier to say.
Yeah. Well, very good. So Nielsen and Nielsen-Naylor, there's got to be a relationship there somewhere.
Yes. So the two, well, we can go over the history all the way back if you want. So
yeah, let's do it.
So we follow a lot of the same history from 1886 down through the split in the 80s, the split with the All Reds. We stayed with the FLDS, same as the FLDS and Centennial Park with their story, until we get to the late 1980s.
Okay.
So by now...
Because Centennial Park split off in 84?
Yeah.
Is that right?
So we would have technically split probably around 89 to 90.
Okay.
And that's when it started. I don't think it really got finalized till the early 90s. But I was born, but of course I would have been very young at the time. But I've heard a lot of these stories from my parents. So the way that we understand it is we had Alma A. Timpson was in the council. He was the youngest member of the council, or at least the least senior. But the split with the guys over in what we call First Ward or Colorado City, the Jeffs, they were out, and we didn't have access to Brother Jeffs anymore. He would have been senior. But
is this Warren or Rulin?
Rulin.
Rulin,
yeah,
okay.
Rulin. And then so Rulin Jeffs was over in Colorado City. J. Marion Hammond and Alma A. Timpson were in Centennial Park. J. Marion Hammond dies in 88, I want to say. And shortly thereafter, and I don't want to get that wrong, so I'm not going to say exactly when, but I know it was shortly after J. Marion Hammond died, then Alma Timpson ordained Frank Naylor Jr. to be an apostle and join him in the quorum because he was alone.
So before we get there, the 84 split, was this like a succession crisis basically? Or what was the cause of the split between FLDS and Centennial Park? Do you know?
So what I have heard, at least, and this is from our perspective, right? I have friends on the other side now, but and they tell a little different story. So, but the best that I can tell that Leroy Johnson, he was the senior man in the council, and he was getting old and starting to lose his memory a little, and he was being influenced by other people. This is what we're told. And he got up in a meeting and he said, I'm going to kick J. Marion Hammond and Alma Timpson off the stand. Like, I don't want them in the council anymore.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of the, of course, as splits go, it'd been brewing for a long time. But that was kind of the culmination. And even though we all still kept meeting together, eventually they realized that it wasn't going to go anywhere and they needed to start a new place.
And do you know what was the issue why you wanted to kick them off the council?
It ranges based on who you talk to. Some of it was the one-man doctrine. There was some men that believed that Leroy Johnson was the one man, was spoken of in Section 132, and a lot of the people that went with the other side of the split did not didn't see it. They saw it more as a cohesive council. Like the council needed to make those decisions together, not just one person and the rest of the council agreed with them.
So Hammond and Timpson were more of council people, and the others were more one-man rule.
That's what it.
And
that's
this is
what
under Uncle
like.
Roy?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Under Uncle Roy.
And so Roy kicks off the two council proponents.
Right.
Okay.
And then, and this actually ties in a little bit, and we could touch it for just a minute because there's a common theme between the three splits that our people endured. You have the one in the 50s with Joseph Musser, and over a lot of the same issue.
Oh, really? Was that a one-man rule thing too?
Well, that's kind of what we were told. Now, the Allreds have a different story, so I don't know. Like, the truth sometimes is between the two.
I'm trying to get the Allreds on. They're tough.
Yeah, and so
I have had it already. Actually, right, Josh Thompson.
Right,
yeah.
I watched that one. The way that we understand it happening was Joseph Musser wanted to call Rule and Allred into the council, but the rest of the council didn't feel good about it, and he just did it anyway. And they said, well, we're council. We're supposed to be unanimous in all of our decisions, and we're not. And because of that, that kind of led to the split. So the majority of the council left, essentially, or I shouldn't say left, they just separated.
Right.
Joseph Musser, Rule and Allred. Joseph Musser called a new council there. And then because Joseph Musser was gone, Charles Itting was the next senior man. He kind of took over until, really, Joseph Musser died before him. So he would have been senior man for a little while.
Okay.
But
1951 or so.
Yeah, something. It wasn't very long. And then after him, I know we're jumping around the history, but after him, then the next one in line would have been LeGrand Woolley and then Lewis Kelch. And then it would have
gone to... This is in
to,
Centennial Park?
This would have been early, like in the 50s.
So in the
Charles
50s.
Itting.
Okay.
And then...
So this is kind of...
Yeah, we're kind of just... The only reason I bring it up is because it just kind of ties together. So the way we view our line is through the same principles in every split, which is we believe that the council needs to be unified to make decisions. And so...
It's easier when one man's in charge, though, right?
It is easier. It is easier. But this is what happens when you have one man in charge and he starts getting old, then is his decisions valid? The point to having a council is that you can go the right way, because we've seen men get old and they're not as sound in judgment anymore. And even in the Book of Mormon, we have that from King Benjamin, who says, I'm getting old and I want to transfer the kingship to my son before, basically what he says, so my skirts will stay clean, so I don't make a big mistake. That's the way I view it. So we have this thing that keeps happening. These men, they're president of the priesthood, or they're viewed in this way, and they get old, and then they make some decisions that are not good. And it would have been better if they would have made decisions that would have been united. There wouldn't have been so many splits. So an ununited council caused the Allred split. And then fast forward down to Uncle Roy, he's an old man. And he kicks the other members of the council off, creating an ununited council because they disagreed. So that happens in 84. Well, it kind of finishes in 84. That's when it's pretty much solid.
Okay.
Then J. Marion Hammond is getting older, and he dies, like I say, in 88. Alma Timpson's alone for all intents and purposes. Brother Johnson's gone. Brother Hammond's gone. Brother Jeffs is leading the Colorado City people, and he's alone. So he calls Frank Naylor Jr. to be an apostle to help him. And there's even some stories that J. Marion Hammond told him to before he died. So that's kind of come down from us. But the other thing he does is he calls Frank Naylor Jr. an apostle, and then he calls Ivan Nielsen a presiding high priest and sets him apart as a bishop. So Brother Timpson was, at least, again, this is from our perspective, Brother Timpson was trying to, he says, we want to organize a stake of the church, fully organized from top to bottom, so that we can take care of tithing, take care of the people. And it's been a common belief throughout our history that we're not supposed to organize. We're not supposed to do that. That's the church's job, like the main church's job.
The LDS Church.
The LDS Church. They organize. We're the priesthood. We don't do that. But here he was, and he was saying, Brother Timpson, and he was saying, we really should be organized. We got enough people. We got enough different families that we need some way to deal with all these people. And the church organization that the Lord laid out in the scriptures, seems like the best way to do it. So they wanted to organize a stake, and he didn't get very far. There was quite a bit of pushback, ordaining Ivan Nielsen to be a bishop. And then he had counselors too. So they set up a bishopric. Ivan met with Frank Naylor Jr. and Alma Timpson in their council meetings. He was kind of considered not a full-fledged member, but he was part of the leadership, and they were going to go this way. Then what happened was Brother Timpson started acting a little different. He started to get old. And my grandpa, so Ivan is my grandfather. So that's...
Now, you guys don't like emeritus status like the Community of Christ, right? Where people can't just quit. LDS don't like it either.
Right. Well, my opinion is that absolutely needs to be on the table.
Okay.
It needs to be on the table. If you're going to have a group or have a church and you get men who are old who've done a faithful job their whole life and they get to where they cannot do the job anymore, you don't want to kick them to the side like they don't matter anymore. But you need to get the decision-making power out of their hands, essentially, and say, let's preserve the work that you did. I mean, because it's all for the gospel. So anyway, back to the story. Brother Timpson starts losing his memory. He starts saying things that he wouldn't have said before. And he wanted to call some other men into the council. And, which is good. We want to keep this going. So he asks Frank Naylor to pray about it, as he's the other member of the council, and they want to be united.
So there's only
two.
Oh, only two people on the council. Oh,
Alma Timpson and Frank Naylor.
Oh.
So they want to call more because that's all they have. So Alma Timpson says, let's pray about this guy. And so they do. And he says, Frank, what do you think? Frank says, I can't get anything on it. I don't really feel good about this. And so they kept working with this. And there's a whole bunch of stories. I won't even go into all those. I don't need to, to me, some of this stuff is relevant and some is just stories. And it might matter a great deal to people, but we're just going to do the, caveman version. So anyway, so from what I have heard, they go to a priesthood meeting. Brother Timpson's not there, which was surprising. And apparently he was ordaining these other men that they had been praying about, but Frank had not agreed to. And so he ordained the current leaders of the Centennial Park people.
Oh.
And, that immediately started to cause some friction. So Frank...
He was one-man rule now.
Right, because now it's like, well, where's the unanimous council? This is the reason.
And he only had two. It shouldn't have been that hard.
It shouldn't have been hard, yeah. And, now I can see from the other side, they can say, well, yeah, but Brother Timpson had been an apostle for a lot of years, and Frank had only been an apostle for a short amount of time, maybe a year when this happens.
You call council members apostles, basically?
Well, that's the office that they're specifically ordained to, is apostle and patriarch.
Oh, okay.
So that's the in the ordination, as far as my studies have gone, that's actually what they're ordained to be apostles and patriarchs, which there's lots of speculation on why that's the way it is. Maybe we won't go into that, but anyway, so that kind of sets this thing in motion now, because now you have this problem. Do you have confidence in your leaders when you feel that they were called incorrectly? So through the next few years, it became pretty clear that we were going to separate. So the mid-90s was pretty much finalized. And Ivan Nielsen moved back up to Salt Lake. Frank Naylor, they were both living in Centennial, but they all moved. We went up to Salt Lake and started to meet in various people's houses, and we were pretty small. Majority of the people stayed down with Centennial. So we were only, when I was growing up, I remember probably 100, 200 people.
So you guys are the third ward?
Yeah, that's actually what a lot of times we were called, which is kind of nice being third because, you don't have to feel like, well, we're not first, so we got to try to be first, and you don't have to hang on to being first, so we just get to be satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
I think Glenn Beck is the one that actually says that. He's I'm third most listened to talk show host, or whatever. But we did used to be called third ward, but that's been years ago.
Okay.
But anyway, so then what happens is Brother Timpson's still alive. Frank Naylor's still alive. They're leaders of opposite groups, essentially. We don't really have much association. There's a little bit. Some families still associate. Brother Timpson dies in, I want to say, April of, 96. Might have been 97. And Frank Naylor Jr. hadn't called any more apostles. He was the only member of the council on our side of the split. But he wanted to. And he said, I want to call some more apostles. We got to keep this thing going. And he says, I'm going to go up to my cabin in the woods and I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to go to the Lord. I'm going to see what he wants me to do. So he takes one of his ladies and they go up in the woods and he has a heart attack and dies in the cabin.
Oh.
So we're in a real pickle because we've been under the council for so long and now they're gone. Brother Timpson is gone. We don't agree with the council down in Centennial. Brother Jeffs is still alive. He's pretty old.
Ruling,
yeah. Sorry, I forget that there's another one because we don't, Warren is Warren. So,
right.
Anyway, but Brother Rulin Jeffs is still alive, but we don't have any access to him. They won't even talk to us. So, my grandpa Ivan Nielsen is a presiding high priest. He's the bishop. And he wonders what to do. He has his two counselors in the bishopric and they go pray to the Lord. And Ivan says, I don't remember if it was a dream or I don't want to put words into it, but he sees three pillars and it means to him that he should ordain his counselors presiding high priests and form a presidency. So not apostles, these are presiding high priests, and they're going to be the presidency over the priesthood, like Section 107 lays out. Section 107, I can't remember the verse, where it says, three presiding high priests form a quorum.
Like William Marks.
Right. So he does this, and it's kind of kept secret. Nobody knows about it for years. Not even some of us that knew about this. And so we get past 2000 and the end of the world, whatever was happening. I remember there was a lot of talk. And it starts going along, and we start to see this pattern. By now, I'm getting older. I serve a service mission in our church in 2006, and between 2006 2008. And we're starting to notice that my grandpa Ivan he's the president, but he's getting old. And we start getting concerned. We've now seen this, lots and lots of times. Men get old, they start making bad decisions, and we don't want this to happen again. So there's talk of what we can do to prevent another split or prevent another, even just a bad thing from happening. So we decided we're going to open up the scriptures, open up Section 107. How does the Lord say to organize? And we prayed about each option, because it lays out, that one part, three presiding high priests form a quorum, and they're equal in authority to the 12 apostles, who are equal in authority to the 70, who are equal in authority to the high councils on the stakes of Zion, who are equal in authority to the high council in the stake of Zion. And so we look and as we prayed about each one, then we felt that what we needed was a high council, a standing, presiding high council, stand next to the presidency to assist in major decisions and to take the presiding authority from the presidency if he should err or fall or die or something. There's some quorum who stands ready to take this responsibility on. And they can be 12 men, which is more cumbersome than a 3-man presiding council. But so Ivan's still alive. He's starting to lose his memory. And they start going pretty fast to get this organized. And so they organize 12 men, get 12 men, ordain them high priests, and call a high council. And then a few years later, Ivan dies. By now, he's lost his memory to a point where he doesn't even remember some of his own children.
Oh.
So he's not effectively a leader. Even so, as soon as the high council's called, they immediately start taking on responsibility to make sure things are going good. But he dies, and his counselors step down, because the way that they understand it is, without the quorum head in a quorum of 3, what can the counselors do? And it kind of goes back to the, Sidney Rigdon and Joseph Smith. Sidney Rigdon should have stepped down, is our belief, because he was a counselor, not the head of the quorum.
The Biggertonites beg to differ.
Yeah. And I haven't talked to any of them. I'd be interested in someday.
Yeah. They just had a service here a couple of weeks ago. You'll have to come
really?
next time.
I would be interested.
I'll let you know.
Anyway, so the counselors step down. They just become high priests in the general quorum, I suppose you could say. And the standing presiding high council steps up. They become the presiding body in the church. And one of the jobs that they're tasked with doing is finding out from the Lord by revelation who should be the next president. So there's no established, what's that word? The church uses succession. So we don't know who it's going to be.
Okay, so you don't just go with the senior. So your high council, is it like the LDS apostles? Are they kind of analogous?
Kind of. So the 12 apostles in the church are technically a traveling presiding high council. And this would be a standing presiding high council. So we would preside.
So you've got a high council and apostles.
Technically you would. And that's the way it was in the early days of the church. Mm-hmm. And the way I understand it is the standing high council presides at home with the presidency. The traveling high council, or the quorum of the 12, they preside over all the churches abroad that aren't organized. They preside over the missionary work, and the 70s and all that to bring people in. But once they organize a branch with bishops or presidents, then that would go under the standing presiding high council. So there's a few checks and balances. You don't have one quorum that is over it all. The presidency's over it all, but they have these helpers.
Mm-hmm.
And because, based on Section 107, because the presidency, the quorum of the 12, the high council, the 70s are all equal in authority, any of them can challenge a decision that is made, but it needs to be unanimous based on 107. So it gets harder and harder the more people you have. So you better be right, the way that I look at it. And also the high council has a job to try a president who is found in error, and they can remove his title from him.
Oh, so
there's like
they're
checks
having
and
memory
balances.
problems and that sort of a thing?
Well, memory problems, you wouldn't necessarily just remove someone's title for memory problems. You'd probably consider an emeritus type status to say, we love the work that you've done faithful, but let's put you in a place where you're not a danger to the people. Or yourself even, or where you could be manipulated by others to do things that would be a danger for their own gain or something like that. So it's just a safety net. So checks and balances are a big part of what we have been trying to do the last 20 years.
Okay.
Is maintain, really, I shouldn't say maintain, I should organize a stake, just like we felt like Brother Timson was trying to do all those years ago. So we currently have, the high council went through that process, ordained a new president, and the 12-man high council was in agreement, and they all felt like they'd gotten the word of the Lord on who it should be. We ordained them, and they have 2 counselors, and the high council's still active, and there's a presidency that presides. That's the structure, essentially the structure. We have, over various areas, we have bishops and that kind of thing. But.
Okay, so that was my next question, was how many congregations do you have? And is there more than, say, a half dozen or so? I don't know.
No, we have a couple in Idaho and Missouri and a small one in Mexico and Bluffdale. So
Okay. So is that 6? Sounds like
5.
5.
Yeah,
Okay.
5. And there's various kind of families that are scattered around that we associate with, but they're not organized.
Okay.
So,
and the apostles are in charge of them, I guess.
They would be, yeah, technically. And where we don't have apostles right now.
Oh, you don't have any apostles?
No. So right now, we just have the 3 presiding high priests and the council, which is the high council. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So did the high council replace the council of friends, essentially, then?
Yeah, well, we don't really view it that way. The council of friends and all of that, I can't say officially how we feel, but how I feel is they did a good work and they kept the principles of the gospel alive so that we could do what we need to do. But that line died out for us. So, because Frank Naylor died without ordaining any more. And whether or not it's essential to have that is still a topic we're considering. But it would have to, I don't even know how we would organize something like that at this point.
Okay.
So the High Council it didn't necessarily change or replace the Council of Friends. It functions as a High Council, like Section 102 says. And it can try membership. It can, it says that they're supposed to assist the presidency in buying property and building meeting houses and ordaining presiding offices in the church. So they're just basically a help and a check to the presidency. One day, I imagine if we can continue to organize and grow, then, we're very interested in doing whatever needs to be done. Now, organization of a quorum of the 12 apostles to travel, we'll see. Right now, we're not traveling. We're not proselyting. We will answer any questions people have. We will kind of talk to people who are interested, but we haven't gone out and started proselyting like the LDS Church does. We feel that some of those things need to be done by revelation, and maybe that'll come. I don't know. But for now, we're just maintaining. We're more or less following Section 88, and we're organizing ourselves the best way that we can.
So essentially, you've got a first presidency. You've got a council of 12. Well, let's see. They're not a high council of 12. Yeah. And then do you have like a stake president?
We're pretty small. So what we have now is basically presiding bishoprics or just bishops who are asked to preside over a ward in the various areas.
Okay. Except
for one area, we have a presidency, like an area presidency kind of a thing. That's probably similar to like what a branch presidency would be in the mainline church.
Okay. So how big are the congregations then? How many people usually attend?
I think that the largest ones are probably a little more than 100.
Oh, they're pretty small.
Yeah. And the small ones are maybe, well, I would say they're all probably about that size realistically. If you count all the little kids, there's lots of kids.
Yeah.
But
it's one thing I've noticed about polygamists. There's lots of kids.
Yeah, we have full primaries. So, but so I would say, it probably varies. When we do we kind of have conferences, and our conferences are our biggest meetings, and they're
like a general conference or a state conference, or
kind of like a general conference, and it's 300 to 400 people.
Okay,
but not everybody comes,
right?
Like but those are the people that show up. So,
and is that every 6 months?
Well, we do have them every 6 months, but we have others scattered in there too. So because the different branches will take a turn.
Okay.
So we usually have one in April. We usually have one in October. And then sometimes we have them in June, like up north, like near Canada, because we have a close association with some of the Blackmores up there. And so we will come together.
The Blackmores up in Canada?
Yeah. So
you said it's an association. There's a loose affiliation, a confederation.
We'll marry, a confederation. We're a co-op. We're a fundamentalist co-op. We'll call that.
Okay.
But we'll, some of our children have married with some of theirs, and we'll attend their meetings. They'll attend ours, and we're pretty good friends. And I would say we understand that we're working towards the same thing in
Okay.
essence. But a formal organization hasn't been existed.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with David Nielsen of the Nielsen-Naylor Group. In our next conversation, we're going to dive into a few other topics. Do they believe in one true church? And also, I was surprised to find out that women actually propose marriage in their group.
That we don't feel to make that claim for ourselves and say, we are the one true, no one else has priesthood except for us. We just see too many evidences to the contrary. There's good being done all over.
So all of the churches, FLDS, Centennial Park, LDS, all of them have priesthood?
To varying degrees.
You've got the best priesthood?
Well, I'm biased.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you to continue to enjoy Gospel Tangents. Consider becoming a Patreon or go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get a cool tie, a hat, or even a nice mug. You can also get a sweatshirt. So check it out at gospeltangents.com/shop.